Hey guys, good morning. It's Mike here, and welcome to Man Talk Monday. You've probably been noticing over the last several weeks as we've been presenting Man Talk Mondays that we've been mentioning this thing called the BraveHeart Intensive that is coming this fall in October in Colorado Springs. And I'm happy to report that that BraveHeart Intensive is now full, and in fact, we now have a waiting list for it to get us ready for the next BraveHeart Intensive. And I thought I'd take this opportunity, just as we do periodically, just to tell you what the BraveHeart Intensive is, kind of why we do it, and even some of the backstory about how it came to be and why we created it, actually now like 10 or 15 years ago, and why since that time there's literally been hundreds of men who have been through it. So for those who don't know, I'm a leadership development coach, and I've been doing this work for about 20 years, probably a little more than 20 years. And I started my work within the context of faith-based organizations, within the context of the church. And I started working primarily with pastors, with lead pastors or other pastors on staff in these churches of all flavors all around the country. And I quickly discovered that, first of all, that these guys that I was working with were just incredible men of God who loved God, who loved the work that they do, had very servant-oriented hearts, who wanted very much to do the right thing, who were good soldiers, who wanted to fight the good fight and wanted to make a difference in the world, wanted to serve their families well, wanted to raise their kids well. Just all the things that we would hope for when we think about a noble-hearted man. And as I came into the work with them as a leadership development coach, I very quickly found that the vast majority of them, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that, the vast majority of them were getting their butts handed to them over and over again. They were suffering from extraordinary levels of burnout. They were feeling overwhelmed much of the time. They were exhausted and depleted. They were confused about what they should be doing. They were often feeling very disconnected from God, often wondering why they couldn't hear God's voice, often struggling just with basic things of how they could know the right choice to make when it came to parenting their kids or making good business decisions, or in their case, many times, how to lead the people of God in the context of faith that they were in. And this, of course, seemed initially perplexing to me because here these were, as I said, really good-hearted men of God who were highly surrendered and wanted to do the thing that God wanted them to do, and yet they were finding themselves again and again hitting up against all these incredibly difficult barriers that were keeping them from really thriving in the work they were called to do and in the family life that they were called to be a part of, in the communities they were a part of, and even in their personal life with struggles they were having internally or in their own, let's say, health or fitness, or in any other thing that they were trying to address. And so for the first several years of my coaching work, I really wanted to kind of solve this riddle, because it doesn't on the surface make sense. You should have, if you have the power of the divine, the power of God working on your favor, and you are in line with that, why would it not cause you to thrive? There had to be something that was in the way. And without going into all the detail of the great amount of research that myself and my clients did, we did it kind of collectively together to kind of find the answer to those questions. We did find that there were ultimately 4 reasons why these men were not thriving. And those 4 reasons have become the 4 pillars of what we train in the BraveHeart Intensive. So I want to go through the 4 pillars, basically, the 4 reasons why these men were not thriving, and the answers that the pillars provide, and explain why we actually, how we bring that work into the BraveHeart Intensive, and why we believe it is the linchpin to help men genuinely step into the fullness of who God created them uniquely to be, and to step into the fullness of the work that God has brought them here to do and to accomplish in the world. So the first thing, and probably the real keystone to the whole thing, is that these men did not know on a very deep core fundamental level who they were uniquely. They did not have a sense of their own identity. And let me explain what I mean by that. There's tons of scriptures, of course, about who we are in Christ, and that general idea that is like we all have certain truths about us as Christ followers that are true for everyone who's a follower of Christ. But I'm not talking about that as that is like the baseline that we all need to believe, and there certainly are struggles around that for everyone, for sure. But I'm talking about something that is deeper than that. It is really about these guys as specific men of God in specific roles at a specific time in history, and who God created them to uniquely be. When you think about just the simple fact that no two human beings in the history of humanity have ever been exactly the same, even our faces, the way God has designed our faces, that no two faces are exactly alike, should give you a hint that God is infinitely creative in the way that he designs us as human beings. And so for each of us, there is a unique identity. There's a unique reflection of Christ, of God, that each of us are designed to embody and fulfill in the world that we're wired for. And if we do not know what that unique identity is, if we do not have really that knowledge, that insight about our true self, wired deep within the bones of our being, then it becomes very difficult for us to stand in the world and to move through the world in a way that is sure and confident and pure. Because, as you guys know, and as these leaders knew when I was working with them in the early days, there are a ton of other voices and forces that are constantly speaking to them, pressuring you to be or do what they think you should be. And you think about, let's say, a pastor in a church context who has an entire parish or entire congregation, an entire flock of people who all have their own vested interest in that leader being something in particular that they want that leader to be. And so when the pastor did not know who they were meant to be exactly, when they weren't sure or clear about that, then all these other voices would begin to kind of push in, mold them and shape them. And it started to have every one of them sort of look like, if you know the story of David and Goliath, when David was told to put on Saul's armor in order to fight Goliath, and so he did, but the armor of another man did not fit him well, and he could not be himself. He could not be who God made him to be in that armor. And so a lot of what happened to these guys, most of what happened to these guys in the early years of my coaching, was that they were putting on some version of Saul's armor. They were putting on some kind of an identity that other people, other forces, whether it's the culture, whether it was even the institutional church, whether it was their congregants, whether it was their family or their family of origin, telling them, this is who you are, this is who we need you to be. And they were trying their best as good soldiers to step into that and to be that. But it didn't work because it wasn't true to the design and the identity that God had put into them. And so they didn't know who they were. That was the first problem and the most foundational problem. And as long as they didn't know who they were, they couldn't stand in it and they couldn't move in it. They couldn't operate in it. And that just crippled them from the ability to be who they needed to be and then to do what they needed to do. And the second one, which is closely associated with that, is they did not know their mission. They did not know their specific reason for being in the world. And this is very closely tied to identity, because we often hear in our culture that identity comes from mission, that, you are what you do, basically. When we ask a guy, who he is, he'll start telling you about his job or his career or what he does for a living, and somehow that's where his identity comes from. But things in the kingdom of God operate upside down from all of that, and your mission flows out of your identity. So if you don't know who you are, you're not going to know what your mission is. You're not going to have any clue what your mission is actually. And when we talk about mission within BraveHeart, we're not talking about vocation specifically. We're not talking about what you're supposed to do for your job, although that can definitely figure in. But what we're talking about is, what is the thing that you are made to be doing, what you're made to be up to 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, no matter where you are, no matter what context you're in, no matter who's in front of you. This is what you do. This is your mission. This is the part of the broader mission of Christ, the broader mission of the kingdom that you are always doing if you are operating out of your true identity. And these guys did not know that. They did not know what their mission was. So consequently, all these other people around them, all these other forces, again, cultural, within the church, the people around them, their family, were telling them what their mission was supposed to be. And so they were trying to fulfill that mission, but it wasn't their mission. So they weren't able to actually do it in the same kind of power and effectiveness in a way that had them thrive and had the same impact that they were made to have in the world. So those were the first two. They didn't know their identity. They didn't know their mission. The third was, they didn't know the habitat they were designed to be in. They didn't know the context that they were wired to actually thrive in. And you can see this most easily, I think, in nature. The way that God has designed everything in creation is that it is a thing, it is made for a thing, and it's also made to thrive in a particular context. If you take, let's say, an African lion, you take a powerful creature like an African lion who is, formidable, powerful, intelligent, has all kinds of capacities and skills. You do not want to tangle with it. But if you took that lion out of its natural habitat and you took it to, let's say, the middle of Antarctica, or you took it to the swamps of Louisiana and you dropped it in these environments that it was not meant to be in, I tell you the truth, it would not thrive. It might find a way to survive, but it would never thrive. It would never be at its peak. It would never function the way it's meant to function. And for many of the guys that I was working with in the early days, they were not thriving, they were not performing at their peak, and they consistently blamed themselves. They consistently thought, it's something wrong with me. When in fact, it was that they did not know the habitat they were designed to be in by God. And so they were in the wrong habitat. They were in the wrong context. So they were like a lion in Antarctica or a lion in the swamps, and they needed to simply move out of that space into a space that they were designed for. And so they did not know the right habitat. In the BraveHeart work, we call this knowing your values, which is a way that we use to identify what are the ways of being and doing and in interacting with the world that you must have in place in order for you to thrive. We call those values. So they didn't know their identity, they didn't know their mission, they didn't know their values, and the fourth thing they didn't know is they didn't know their shadow. And this is the one that obviously sneaks up on you from behind. We talk about shadow, we're talking basically about they didn't understand on a very practical level what could take them out. They understood kind of the biggest things that everybody looks for, whether it's addiction or temptations of a certain kind. But usually, like what I found in my coaching early on, is it's not usually the danger that you know about that takes you out, it's the danger you don't see coming. And that's what lives in our shadows as men. It's the part of our false self. It's the secret, hidden beliefs, sometimes even hidden from ourselves, that are quietly running in the background and are actually maybe running our lives in the background without our awareness of it. So they did not know their shadow. And unfortunately, in many religious contexts, we're encouraged to sort of push that out of our conscious awareness. We think if we push it away, it won't have any power. If we don't think about it, it won't have any power. When it's actually more true to say that what you resist persists, and the thing that you can't look at will run your life from the darkness. It will run your life from the shadows. And so what these guys had to do was to take the things that they were afraid to look at or didn't want to look at and pull it out from behind them where they weren't paying attention to them and hold it right out here and take a look at what is your shadow. And in the BraveHeart work, we call this shadow mission, and we go right into it. So in the you're kind of getting it now. We took these 4 things that I was discovering and with my clients discovering, that we're taking them out, and one by one, we filled in the blanks on those 4 things. Who are you really? When God dreamed of you specifically, what was that dream? When God called you to do something in the world, when He wants to transform the sphere of influence you're in, what is the thing, the one thing that He wants to do through you more than anything else? That question. What is the context in which He's designed you to do it? And what is the thing that can take you out? What is the thing that if you gave it permission would actually destroy your life? Like that thing that's back here. And it often isn't the thing you think it's going to be. It's usually something that you haven't considered. Although sometimes it is the thing you think it's going to be. Anyway, so when we took all that, put it into an immersive experience that we call the BraveHeart Intensive, and for guys who come through this process, those are the 4 pillars that we focus on, and they are the 4 questions that we answer. We help a man find the answer to the question of who he really is. Not who the society says he is, not who his family says he is, not even who he says he is. We want to know, when God dreamed of you, what did God dream? And we want to know specifically. You're the only you that's ever existed in the history of mankind. And when God dreamed of you, He had a specific reason for you to be here, and a specific reason for you to be who you're made to be. So we want to answer that question. We have a process for that. We want to answer the question, what is the thing that you're here to do? What is the primary thing, the work that is your primary work? And you might be able to do it in 20 different ways, through 20 different jobs, but there is a thing that you're made to do that's always going to be your mission. What are the contexts? What are the values that need to actually always be in place for you to actually thrive in that mission and that identity? And then what is your shadow mission? Those are the 4 things we work on in BraveHeart. We offer the BraveHeart Intensive in multiple formats. We do it as a weekend retreat. We do it as an in-person course. We do it as a virtual course. We'll do it over a handful of weekends in an in-person, like, say, half-day workshop. We have many different ways we can present it, but the end result is the same, that the guys who go through it, they experience a revelation, a game-changing revelation about why they're here, what they really need to be present in their life for them to be who they're made to be, and who they really are. Like, what is the deep truth about their true self in Christ? Those are the things that we actually work on and answer. And we're quick to say often that even though that sounds super attractive, and it is, it's actually extraordinarily freeing ask any guy who's been through it. But it also is not for the faint of heart, because once you know this, once you know the truth about who you are, why you're here, and all the rest, you can't go back. So it has the high potential of changing the course of your life in a dramatic way. It has the high potential of undoing or remaking or reshaping the path that you're on. Now, this is actually great news, because you may be dutifully, with a good heart and with a noble spirit, you may be charging up the wrong hill. Because that's what all the data around you has told you you're supposed to be doing, like thousands of us as men. So once you know this new information, it can mean a massive change to a new direction. And that is scary territory for a lot of men. It's not always easy for us to go back and shift entire systems that we've built around ourselves, change the course of our lives. It doesn't always mean a change of career, but it can mean a change of career. So that's why we say it may not be for everybody. It's certainly not for the faint of heart, and it does require a high degree of surrender to go through it. But that's what the BraveHeart Intensive is, and it's why we've been offering it all this time, and why we vet guys who come through it. You know, you sign up and we'll do a phone call with you or a Zoom call with you just to really check in and say, are you sure? Are you sure you want this information, because it's going to change things for you. And also why we keep it small. We never have super big Bravehearts, because we're doing very, very intimate, very personalized work with a small cadre of guys every time, because we want to do the necessary work to help every man get clear on those 4 cornerstones, those 4 pillars about who they are and why they're here, and what are the answers to these big questions that they need. I will say one more thing about it, and then I'll let you go and tell you how you can get on board for this. The one more thing I'll say about it is that once you do know this stuff, it's not as though you can just sort of snap your fingers and everything changes. It requires a practiced, surrendered path that you need to walk out, because you have we have a lot of old patterns and habits that are built around the false self, or built around the path that we thought was the right one, and we need to shift to a new one. And we have structures in place within our experience, within our training, to help you do that. But it will require a lot of you. So for you to actually shift into this new way of being and doing in the world. So all of that is also part and parcel with the BraveHeart Intensive. Also why we keep it small, to have you make sure that you can have the support you need on the back end to make the changes necessary to make this stuff actually stick, and for you to offload Saul's armor and to grab your sling or whatever it is that it is for you, and go be who you're made to be in the world, and go do the thing you're made to do. Because our actual passion is to help men become unleashed in the world as their true selves, in their true mission, because that is actually what changes the world around us. Not play acting, not doing what everybody else says you're supposed to do, but finding your true message, your true place in the world, and to go fulfill that. So as I mentioned, our BraveHeart for this fall is already full, but we do have a wait list, and we'd love to put you on it. We have new BraveHearts that are forming every year. We'll start doing more BraveHearts the more guys we get on our wait list, and we'd love to have you on it. So if you would go to the BraveHeartIntensive.com and BraveHeartMen.com, and look at the top bar. It'll say Start Here. Just click on Start Here. It'll give you a little form to fill out. And when it asks you, just what are you interested in, just say, I'm interested in the BraveHeart Intensive, in that little space. When we see that, we will put you on the wait list for that. We'll reach out to you and begin the conversation of seeing, when are you ready? What do you need to know? Anything else you need to be aware of before you take the step to come to a BraveHeart Intensive. But we would absolutely love to share this work with you. We have watched literally hundreds of men experience it and have their lives shifted. All the guys who are leading this work have been through it, have had their lives shifted in a massive way, and we're very excited about sharing it with other guys, because we believe this is really just a key linchpin for every man to know these truths, these 4 pillars about himself. So thank you so much for just listening to me reiterate what the BraveHeart Intensive is and why we do it. Please do share this video with someone else that you know who may also be in this place where they're ready to take a step into a direction toward life. Like this video, comment below. It really helps us get it out to more people who don't know anything about us. And thank you so much. And we'll see you again in the next Man Talk Monday.